Hi, welcome back to Trail and Ultra Running Training. My name is Will Frantz. I'm a running coach and a strength coach, and the whole goal of this podcast is to help you train a little better so you can have more fun out on the trails. Today, we're going to be talking about supplements. I was originally going to talk about moderating effort. We might still get there, but I have a feeling I'm going to go on a bit of a rant, and we will see what we actually end up with in terms of that part. Probably just going to be a fairly long rant on why supplements are a waste of your time and money. If you appreciate this or like this, please hit subscribe or follow, or any of the things that tell the robots that you'd like to hear from me again in the future. And if you don't want to do that, great. Just share it with somebody that you think might find it useful, who's taking too many supplements and draining their bank account. So, supplements. I had this plan to talk about effort today and moderating effort, and I might actually get to that. I don't know how long this first part's going to take, but I had a few conversations in the last probably 48 hours about supplements, and I'm going to go off on that for a little while because I've found it tiring, and we'll see if we still get to that effort conversation. So, first, can we stop pretending that anybody who is suggesting supplements is doing it for some altruistic reason? Holy shit, I have a podcast and I just found this amazing thing and I need to tell you about it. It has not ever happened. It is almost always going to be a contract, unless it's something like creatine, where they can push it for you for literally no money, because nobody is almost ever sponsored by creatine, because why would you be? You can buy it for almost the price of dirt. It is always a supplement that costs a car payment, right? So let's pull back the curtain a little bit. Supplement contracts, like the good ones, can deliver a 20% commission fee for life. And I'm not talking about the shitty ones. I've been approached by various supplement companies, and they run more the cheap bad ones that would offer me anything. Play more on the MLM or multi-level marketing plan of things, where they make you buy a lot of supplements and then you're supposed to sell those, or they make you do a monthly membership and then you try to basically make that back in commissions by making a ton of affiliate posts at a really low rate. We're not talking about those. We're talking about the ones for I'm probably going to pick on Athletic Greens a lot because they're everywhere and I've actually tried them. I try not to talk on things I have not tried. So this also almost certainly applies to things like Organifi and whatever, and Legion and First Form. But I've tried Athletic Greens. I think it tastes like dirt, for one thing. But regardless, dirt flavored with stevia. But we're going to talk on that because I've actually used that. And I can say that personally, it did nothing for me other than cost a lot of money. So AG1 costs $80 a month. If we're talking about a 20% commission fee for life, at $80 a month, you would need a little over 500 people to subscribe for a year and stick with that subscription in order to make six figures that year. So even if it's 5%, let's just cut it in a quarter just to be generous. If you get 2,000 people to subscribe per year, then you're making 100K on green subscriptions, or you're making 25, right? Yearly for the original 500. We are making a lot of money on these things because Tim Ferriss just crossed a total of 1 billion downloads. I like Tim's podcast. I've learned a lot from it. There's almost always nuggets, but he's making an insane amount on Athletic Greens. And I genuinely think he likes the product because, as he'll tell you, he talked about it before he was sponsored by them. Right? He was also a supplement salesperson prior to becoming an author. We have to understand somewhat where these people come from. Same story with Andrew Huberman. It is not an unreasonable assumption to think that these guys are making $1 million a month from Athletic Greens sponsorship alone. Hell, let's cut that in 10. They're still easily making six figures a month on a single supplement contract. So, and then if we look into, those are the big ones, right? But if we look into I have looked into podcast sponsorships in the past, and obviously don't take any now. Was never really offered any that I would have wanted to take, but still stick with a pretty hard policy that it would have to be something that I actually care about. And most of these large companies won't even talk to you unless you get like at least 10,000 downloads an episode. There are probably exceptions there. They're probably very few and far between. So there's many ways to slice this, but I just like to say that once you like land the platform, it is pretty easy to make money through the like sponsorship and supplement route. Building the platform is really difficult because like nobody ever knows what's going to pop off. You usually have to make a lot of really great, consistent content or be a professional athlete so that you have an audience already coming in. And even then, still get pretty lucky. Like it is hard to land. But once you do the hard part and have the luck of getting the platform with a bunch of people listening to you, then you can make an insane amount of money on sponsorships. Very honestly, I don't care. Like we live in capitalism and this is how things are. Like either work with it or try to change it. I don't know. But I probably get frustrated by it because I've fallen for these things a bunch of times. And it's kind of resulted in me being really cynical, which might be a positive thing because I tend to tell people to stop trying supplements and just pick up more weight on their deadlift, which tends to lead to results. However, it's still tiring, and I definitely get frustrated because people act like there's some like deep altruism to these like hosts and athletes and whoever presenting you these great offers. Like, holy shit, I can't believe I get a 10% discount on this. That's so nice of them. No, they're making a fuckload of money, and they're very good business people. And I'd also probably be less pissed if the supplements work, but they don't. Like, no supplement does much of anything. And we know this because there's a bunch of studies, and they don't have to be studies due to regulation, but there still are. And it's just, if there were magic, people would be actually selling it as magic instead of what it very clearly is like a placebo effect. You know, it works really well? Creatine, caffeine. Caffeine is a magical drug. If we found caffeine now, it's so good it might be illegal. But most of these are going to provide you with like a 1% improvement in performance, right? And I got about a 6-month supply of creatine in my closet, maybe more, honestly, because I'm not that consistent with it, for less than half of what a month of AG1 costs. And yet here we are, pretending like AG1 is some like magic antidote. So if we just look, and to prove the point here, let's look at their ingredients. Pull it up. Like they have to list their ingredients. When you see ingredients on anything, if you don't know this, it's usually done, or should be done if they're following the law, in order of like content. Like the most should be at the front and the least should be at the back. And AG1 has what everybody is also willing to rail about is a proprietary blend, because they don't tell you how much of any of the shit is in their thing. They tell you there's 75 ingredients or whatever. And then the same people like who are going to tell you that, oh, you should never take anything that's a proprietary blend because you don't know what's in it, then they immediately come around and tell you that like AG1 is really good quality and you should buy it because it's expensive. So if we look at a couple of their ingredients, they have different boxes, and one of them is organic spirulina, which, cool. Algae, great. Lots of green stuff. Lecithin, which is basically an emulsifier, which makes me wonder why Athletic Greens still manages to be so fucking grainy if its second ingredient's an emulsifier. Then apple powder, probably because it's cheap and because it's actually not bad. And then inulin, and this is the one I was getting to. We're not going to go any farther than this. I realize this is boring and really bad content. Inulin is fiber. It's almost entirely fiber. There are 2 grams of fiber in Athletic Greens. So barring the fact that there's probably a little bit of extra extraneous fiber in some of these other things, that basically means that there's no room for any of the stuff below inulin, of which there's at quick glance 25 ingredients in this one box, for there to be any real quantity. All right, so there has to be at least probably like 1.5 to 2 grams of spirulina, less than apple powder and inulin, which means since the whole box is supposed to be 7.5 grams, all of this shit is in like minuscule quantities. This is what we see later as well. There's 2 grams of protein in athletic greens, and then their second box starts with pea protein isolate, which this is supposed to be 2.5 total grams, right? So the next 15 ingredients are almost nothing, no content. And that's not to say that there has to be a ton of any single ingredient for it to be efficacious, but a lot of the time it does. And I know for a few of these, like the mushroom powders, there has to be more mushroom powder in a thing for it to work than the entire box in there, right? So the shit just doesn't work. There's not enough of half of the ingredients in here for it to actually do its job. And when we just look at a lot of these green powders, they're all going to be like that. At least when it comes to athletic green, we could maybe argue that it's a decent multivitamin because it does give you a breakdown of everything from like vitamin A to C to E to whatever, like any normal multivitamin. But even there, it's kind of shit because a lot of the things that you would really need, like there's a decent B complex in here, but even then it's a little underpowered. There's almost no vitamin D, there's almost no calcium, there's almost no magnesium. Like the stuff when you look, potassium, the stuff when you look at someone's diet, where they tend to be pretty deficient. I've looked at quite a few diets on like Chronometer. It's not here, right? There's no potassium, there's no calcium, there's no magnesium, these things that athletes lose and yet struggle to eat because it's really hard to eat like 6 to 9 cups of greens a day when you're also doing sports and trying to eat enough food to just not die and have your muscles recover. There's not enough of that shit in here. You'd be better off like taking a pill of calcium, magnesium, maybe iron if you're low in iron, and like eating a potato, and you would probably get more benefit than you would from an athletic green supplement for a lot less money, right? And this is where we end up with things like spring energy, right? We get so inundated with this bullshit that it becomes very difficult to either believe anything, so you end up a cynic like me, or we believe all of it. We're just like, oh, here's a packet that weighs less than the sugar it's supposed to contain weighs, and it's supposed to be made out of nothing but apples. Like, we fall for this because it's just all the time. We're so overloaded with all this shit, and it's why it's exhausting, right? So I've tried the athletic green stuff. It did nothing for me. And I think it tastes like dirt flavored with stevia. And I hopped off the bandwagon a while ago for all of those reasons, and because I was wasting a ton of money. And the really frustrating thing, I think, is because I'm not special here. I was struggling a bit. I wanted quick results. I also didn't have much of, if any, money at the time, and yet I'm wasting a bunch of it on this to the tune of almost like $1,000 per year. Because if we do 80 by 12, it's $960, right? So we're talking like $960 per year for a supplement that doesn't really do anything. And I have so many people who are kind of broke or struggling or just want to feel better. Like, ask if they should do this, or tell me that they've started following athletic greens when they're not even getting in like basic steps in a day. Like, take that money and get a gym membership, or take that money and get a walking pad for your room. I think they cost like $150 to $200, right? Like, any of these things would be better. Take that money and buy a home gym off of Marketplace and like shove it in some space for you, or buy a TRX setup or something. But I'm picking on athletic greens because it's the one I've tried and it's so prevalent, but it's true for all of them. I'm certain that the contract would be similar for something like Organifi, and I can tell you that the list there is the same shit. shorter ingredient list on Organifi, so they probably have a little more of each content, but they also don't have necessarily the multivitamin benefit. And it's tiring to me that we are, I don't know if manipulated is the right word, and if I do, I don't mean it in the like sinister sense, but kind of manipulated by a lot of podcasts because, and it's not new, right? Like we've been manipulated by advertising and marketing for so long, like probably literally as long as time, but it's easier to fall for it because it's really easy to like these people because we spend so much fucking time with them, right? Like I know it's weird to be on the other end of it a little bit. Occasionally I'll have a call with someone and they'll tell me they've listened to a bunch of my podcasts and they know a bunch about me and I don't know a lot about them. And maybe that's you. And hey, like it's just the game. It's not a big deal. But I'd feel the exact same about a lot of the podcasts I listen to. I've listened to literally thousands of hours of a couple podcasts. And I'd say it's worth that because I tend to listen on triple speed, but that's so much time, right? Like we know their kids, we know their dogs, we know when they get divorced, we know when they're together, we know when they have a breakup, we know when they travel, we know when they're on vacation. And it's just like these parasocial, somewhat intimate relationships lead to really easy sales because it's almost always easier to sell someone who likes you, right? And that's why I kind of do these things in the first place. You're almost always going to listen to your friend who's like, hey, I just tried this great thing. Like, you should give it a shot. And it's really easy to feel like you're in these parasocial relationships and that they're kind of your friends. But we should remember that they're not. They're business people. They're usually doing a podcast, yes, partially to share good information. Because as I said at the beginning of every podcast, that is what this is about. And I try to hold a standard that I think a lot of people try to hold in this industry of like still provide good information that helps people. But we also have to realize that it is a business. And if you're listening to this, like I'm certain I'm not the only podcast you listen to because I'm really far down the totem pole on all those metrics, right? Like I have a little over 300 subscribers. I've had about 25,000 total downloads. Tim Ferriss recently had 1 billion downloads. And I know people like Rogan and Huberman are more or similar or close. So let's not pretend there's some like altruism here. Not saying that the hosts you love are lying. I'm just saying that humans are incredibly susceptible to the placebo effect. And it's pretty easy to convince yourself that something works when it might provide a decent benefit, it might provide no benefit, it's not harmful, and it pays for your house, right? If someone offered me 6 figures to occasionally talk about something that I thought wasn't harmful, I couldn't tell you what I'd do because I've never been in that position, right? It's like Mike Tyson's old coach said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And in this particular realm of things, I have not had that particular punch to the face. So I would like to say I wouldn't, but I don't know. And if I did, I'd probably start coaching people for almost zero money. And I'd probably be really open about why. And probably say, hey, I'm using this sponsorship to pay my rent, and I'm going to drop my coaching rates to dirt or keep them really low because it's hard to make a living doing fitness things that a lot of us care about. The money is, and always has been, in supplements and quick results. We're almost always going to buy a pill before we buy a gym membership. And a lot that leads to a lot of people in my position to go well, it's going to happen anyway, so I might as well make money off of it. And that might be true. But if you're not willing to do the supplement thing, then it's going to be more of a struggle. And historically, I haven't been willing to do the supplement thing. I never once hit my supplement sales quota when I worked at a commercial gym for a short stint. And very simply because the person would almost always ask me, do I need this? And I would almost always tell them no, because they didn't, because you can almost always get it by eating a salad and a piece of chicken, right? Like you don't need protein powder and a multivitamin, you can eat food. So, I don't know, these things aren't magic. And unless you're the person selling them, then they magically fill your bank account. But otherwise, they don't really do anything real. The most worthwhile supplements tend to be really cheap. And these would be things like creatine, caffeine, carbohydrates in the form of like goos and gels and powders that like actually improve your performance. Magnesium can be found really cheap, and you don't need some like form that I told people you needed forever. You can get the really cheap one, not the diuretic, but the other one, and it will do really well. You can get fish oil as long as you keep it in the freezer. It's not going to go rancid. You can get that really cheap. Even then, those last two are pretty questionable depending on your diet, but I live in a desert, and it's a struggle for me to eat enough salad to fuel my running, so they can be helpful. They're still not expensive, right? We need to stop falling for the bullshit of really expensive magical cures. Or don't. I don't care. It's like, I just think that we'd probably be better off spending our time and money almost literally anywhere else. Like, hire a dietitian to help you actually figure out your diet. Hire a coach to help you train better. Get a new pair of shoes. I know that we all love shiny new shoes because you've probably been running on a certain pair for like way too long, and it's time to replace them. Get a gym membership. Buy a few kettlebells so you can actually do some work at home. Get an adjustable dumbbell set. There is no magic. It's always just work and consistency. And supplements promise this very quick, easy result, and all they actually do is really support the person selling them, which if you want to do that, that's great. But realize that that's what you're doing. You're not actually getting results. You are more than likely just supporting someone who you like to listen to. Anyway, I hope this was helpful. That went on forever. We're not going to get to the effort conversation today. I'm going to eat some food and then go to work. And we'll talk about moderating your effort and easy runs and hard runs and stuff at another time. So hope you have a great rest of your day and go have some fun on the trails. Thank you again for listening to the Trail and Ultra Running Training Podcast. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Just a reminder, nothing you hear on this podcast is medical advice, and you should always speak with a medical professional before making changes to your training or your nutrition. If you enjoyed the podcast or found it helpful, please leave a rating or review. It tells the algorithm robots that people like it, and that means more people will hear it. Or even better, just share it with someone who you think would benefit. If you prefer a video version, head to the Trail and Ultra Running Training Group on Facebook, or check out the Mountain Goat Endurance Coaching YouTube channel. Thank you again, and I hope you have a great next run.